And we are live. Shalom, Israel. This is the Israelite School of Universal and Practical Knowledge, starting out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under commanding General Yohana. And as you know, since 1969, we have been diligently teaching Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians their true nationality and culture according to these scriptures. And with that being said, it's some things you must know about this Bible that you may have not known. You know, it is the year 2023. It is the brink of a new year according to the world. But you know, the brothers and sisters in the truth know what the real new year is. But I say that to say this, that to correlate to bringing into more reality perspective, that since the beginning of time, we have been taught wrong. We have been taught that the Bible was written by white men, that the Bible has been, tampered with, messed with, and the story is not the same, and it's all allegory, and nothing can be true about it. And how ironic is that when we find out the truth and we start to tell brothers and sisters and tell the world that the Bible, the greatest book on the face of the earth, is actually about black and brown people, then it becomes a thing. It's like, it can't be true. Then it becomes a problem. Then, people want to talk and, go against it and speak contrary against the scriptures. That's what people want to do. When in all actuality, the Bible is about black and brown people. And that's one thing that you have to understand, and you just must come to grips with, that you got to accept. Whether you want to believe it or not, the Bible is the only thing that the priests and prophets of the Lord are going by and that we believe. We have faith in these scriptures. And you don't have to have faith in these scriptures to believe that you win them. But best believe, brother, this Bible is talking about you. This Bible ain't talking about another nation or another race. You understand? This Bible is talking about specifically black and brown people, whether it be the ups and the downs. Let me go ahead and bring the brother up. Work with me. The devil be tampering with the internet. You know how that be, but come on now, work with me. I'm gonna get you in here. Just bear with me. Okay, let's see what we got. Yeah, but with that being said, they like to just push us further and further away and distract us further and further away from who we truly are. So today's class is about the Bible is indeed talking about black and brown people. It is. If I could I get I'm gonna let it load in for a second. I don't know if you can really hear me. Whatnot. Let me see. I think you should be to wild now. When you get on the screen, you can let me know when you're on the screen. I'm a little delayed over here.
Sir.
Okay, you can hear me?
Sir.
All right, Most High in Christ. All right, if I could, can you give me the book of Daniel, chapter 7, and verse 9? Baba Kashat. And when you got it, you can go ahead and read it. We're going to break it down for the audience and brothers and sisters across the world.
It's the book of Daniel, chapter 7, verse 9.
Mm-hmm.
I beheld till the thrones were cast down,
Mm-hmm.
and the Ancient of Days did sit,
Mm-hmm.
whose garment was white as snow.
Stop right there.
And the hair of
You can stop right there.
and the
And the Ancient of Days did sit. So like this is talking about the Most High. That's the Ancient of Days. He did sit, whose garment was white as snow. Like his garment was pure white. Keep reading.
whose garment was white as snow,
Mm-hmm.
and the hairs of his head like the pure wool.
Mm-hmm.
His throne was the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire.
Right. And the hair of his head like the pure wool. Meaning what? When it said pure wool, basically it's trying to say like his hair was woolly, but it was pure. It wasn't like some knockoff or trying to be like the wool. It was pure wool. You know how like you have a pure German Shepherd or a pure Rottweiler or a pure Pit Bull, pure Bully. Those are purebred dogs. There's no mix in them. It's a pure lineage. It's the same thing when it's talking about the Ancient of Days did sit. It's talking about the Most High, and it's talking about his hair was white as snow, and it was like pure wool. Meaning what? It was nothing in the Most High that's mixed around. It's pure, which means that he has a pure lineage, which means that he has pure Negro hair. And Negroes are the only one that have woolly hair. Salakia, I mean, Native Indians as well and Hispanics. When you look at black people's hair, black and brown people's hair, we got what y'all call nigger naps. Or, the hair that, if we get wet, it shrink up. The hair that if we rock it out in the afro, it looks glorious, whether it's picked or not. That's woolly hair. And the only nation that has that is the nation of Israel. No other nation has woolly hair. Now you can see that maybe, somebody else can try to cleave on and say they have woolly hair, but they really don't. It's something that they may have did to tamper with their hair to make it appear that way. But in all actuality, it's not the same as black and brown people that the Bible depicts. And, we see this a lot of times. You see this on the internet. You see Africans trying to cleave on and, some white people, other nations, the Arabs, and say, well, I have woolly hair too. They've done things to get their hair like that or to appear to look like ours. But they're not naturally having hair like that out of the womb. It's not. You always got to do something to try to look like us, to try to, fit in with us, to try to cleave on and say they're God's chosen people. And it goes all the way down to that one little detail. That one little detail is that's one little thing that they can try to, cleave on to us. So if I could get Revelations 1-13, because people like to say, well, color not in the scripture. No, it is.
Are you ready, sir?
Mm-hmm.
Revelation chapter 1, verse 13. And in the
Mm-hmm.
midst of the seven candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man,
Mm-hmm.
clothed with a garment down to the foot,
Mm-hmm.
and girt about the paps with a golden girdle.
Right. And in the midst of the seven candlesticks, we all know what this is. In the midst of the seven churches, right? Just like the seven candlesticks represents the seven churches on the menorah that we have when we have our feast days. So in the midst of the seven candlesticks, in the midst of the seven churches, one like unto the Son of Man. Meaning what? This is talking about Christ now. If you go into the book of Revelation, you go to the first chapter and the first verse, it talks about this is the revelation of Christ, the reveal of Christ. So this is definitely talking about Christ. And numerous scriptures in the book of Revelation are Christ speaking. So with that being said, one like unto the Son of Man. Who is the Son of Man? Christ. So that means that this right here is depicting Christ. The Son of Man is Christ, right? Clothed with a garment down to the foot. Just like you see the men of the Lord in the Lord's army in the ISUPK when we go to Passover or when we're at camp or we're going somewhere where we have to wear our priestly attire, our warlike apparel, we are wearing garments down to the foot. This is biblical. We're not wearing dashikis. We're not wearing togas with flip-flops, just like the white Christ that they depict in the church. We're not doing that. We're wearing warlike apparel just like Christ. And it goes more in the details, so you know that this is biblical, right? And girt about the paps with a golden girdle, right? Meaning that he had a warlike belt right there where like his stomach area is down to the lower part, protecting his loins, right? That's what it was doing. So this is talking about Christ, and it's going to get into more detail. Can I get verse 14? And we got verse 14.
Verse 14, sir?
Con.
Oh, Salagi. Con.
Good.
Verse
Wow.
14. His head and his hairs were white like wool.
No, say it again.
As white as snow.
Read it again.
His head and his hairs were white like wool,
Uh-huh. Keep going.
as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire.
Right, and I'm gonna break this down. His head and his hairs were white like wool. You gotta understand this. When you read this, Christians will read this and they'll say, well, that means Christ is white. No, you gotta understand the context, man. They saying that the hair on his head is white like wool. But when you read this, and if you was reading it out of context, that's how Christians will say, well, Christ is white. Because they're not understanding. They don't have the wisdom nor the understand the ability to understand the scriptures to be able to break them down. And that's why you think that Christ is white. They can take this one scripture and just drag it along, right? And his hairs were white like wool, meaning what? Now, we just read in Daniel 7 and 9 when he was talking about pure wool hair, right? His hairs were white like wool. That means Christ's hair upon his head was white. Pure white. That represents wisdom. And it was woolly hair at that, right? As white as snow. Now it's getting to the depiction to tell you what color Christ's hair was and what texture. Wool is a texture, and the color of Christ's hair was white. White as snow. And white represents wisdom. I'm going to keep going. And his eyes were as a flame of fire. Meaning what? The reason why Christ's eyes were as a flame of fire is because all Christ did was drink wine. Need I remind you, we're depicting a man, and just by this depiction in these first couple of verses, I would want to look this man in the eye. I could see why you guys were trying to take Christ out. I can see why. You had a very tall, big black man. He does things in decency and order. He had wisdom. He had discernment. And he followed all God's laws. And he looked kind of terrifying. I can understand. He has some authority. He was a black man that actually stood 10 toes tall. I can understand why you guys tried to take him out. You guys were intimidated because you've never seen a man with such wisdom and with such authority and with such discipline. And the same type of man Christ was is the same type of men that are in the ISUPK and the Commanding General Yohana. Honorable men, disciplined men, men that stand 10 toes tall. That's what you get, just like Christ. So that's just like Christ was a brown man from the tribe of Judah, and I could prove it as well. We'll get into those scriptures. It's just like brothers and sisters in the school. We got black and brown people all in the school, and that Bible is talking about them. And never not once was talking about the upliftment or the downfall of other nations that the Lord loved besides the nation of Israel. Now, of course, it talks about other nations and how this became to happen and how they fell, but it never said that he loved them. He only said that he loved the nation of Israel. So simply with that being said, we're going to get back into these scriptures and keep breaking it down. We're going to talk about that this Bible is about black and brown people. Can I get verse 15? It's a lot. Because we read 14 already.
Come. Verse 16. 15. And his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters.
Right. So I'm going to break down verse 15. So, and his feet like unto fine brass. Now, this is getting into the depiction of Christ's skin color. Now, why would they say his feet are like unto fine brass? Why? Why would they say that? Because on the bottom of his feet, it was brown. It's like copper, like the color of a penny. You know what I'm saying? If you look at my skin color, I'm brownish, right? And then it says, as if they burned in a furnace. Meaning what? This is talking about Christ's feet. This is saying that if it was burned in a furnace, it's basically saying like Christ was a very dark man. He was a dark-skinned man. He was darker than me. Like they just threw him in fire and he came out. When they threw, it's like This right here is describing is like when you cook a hot dog on a grill and you let it cook too long and you get them little black marks and the skin sizzle up and it's all black. That's what they're saying, burned in a furnace. When you put wood inside of a fireplace, because that's the same thing as a furnace, it doesn't come out the same color. It comes out a lot darker. It goes in brown and comes out black, right? And his voice is the sound of many waters. Meaning what? Well, we all know that Christ, well, if you don't know, I'm enlightening you to let you know that Christ was a very stern man. You know what I'm saying? Christ's voice was very stern. He wasn't a weak man. It's kind of like when your father talks. You know when your father talks and you at attention, you like what he about to say, you kind of get right. When your mama talks to you, it's like, you kind of get over. But when your father says something, it's like you get right. It was a sternness in his voice. It was the sound of many waters. You know what I'm saying? And people could hear Christ talking from ways away. He had some sternness and authority and bass in his voice. He wasn't that weak man, that weak white man that they profess and plaster across the world, Caesar Borgia. That is not the Messiah of the nation of Israel. That is not the Christ of the nation of Israel. That right there is a false idol and a lie. That is something that you should not worship. What you should worship is Christ, Yahweh Shai HaMashiach. And if you worship him, then you'll get the wisdom to understand that, hey, Christ is a black man, and his Bible is all about black and brown people. But if you don't follow the real Messiah of the nation of Israel, and you follow the false idol, then you will forever believe that Christ is a white man, that the Bible was written by white people, that white people are going to rule forever, and that you amount to nothing in life and you're just some nigga in spit. But if you do follow Christ, you'll understand that this Bible is only talking about black and brown people, because that's who the Most High loves. Now you have trials and tribulations. We ran into other nations. We had our ups and we had our downs. But this Bible is just basically a life story of black and brown people, nationality, heritage, and oral culture. That's what it's about. Not everything that they say in the church, because they don't know the Bible. Not these fake Israelite groups. They don't know the Bible. Where you'll learn this Bible is from the ISUPK under Commanding General Yohana. That's where you'll learn it at. If it wasn't for the ISUPK under Commanding General Yohana, I would have never known that Christ was black. There was a lot of times my mom used to say, or my family members used to say, I know Christ's black. I never knew Christ was black. I was still thinking that he was white. And then it came to a point I thought he was multiple colors. It was not only until the ISUPK, the Commanding General Yohana, for the time and dedication that they do and go out there and to save brothers like me. And now I'm a part of it. Now I found my home. Now I know that Christ is black. Now I know that this Bible is about black and brown people. Now I have the wisdom and the understanding to understand and to be able to teach other brothers to let you know that this Bible is talking about you. Sooner or later, the more that you can look at this Bible and understand that like you're living the Bible and you're in the Bible and it's talking about you, then it'll start to click and it'll be like, okay, I gotta get my act right. This Bible talking about me. We talking about some of the greatest people to ever walk the face of this earth, the greatest nation. And we led by one of the greatest kings to ever walk the face of this earth, Yahweh Shai HaMashiach, Christ. So we gotta get our act right. We gotta take hold of this Bible and hold it dear to our heart. The same way that you go out in this world and you hold everything else dear to your heart, and you ready to rip and run and at any call, any click of the matter, you right there, front and center. Sir, yes, sir. It's the same way you need to be with these law, statutes, and commandments, with this Bible, because it's talking about you. And the sooner or later that you know it's talking about you, you can start to walk this Bible and talk this Bible. You can't just be talking about it and then don't walk it, don't live it. Nah, you're going to talk it and walk it. And you're going to understand, hey, if this Bible talking about me, and we some of the greatest people that ever walked the face of this earth, we got to get everybody else on one accord so we can get right and build this kingdom up. Now you start to understand. Can I get Daniel 10 and 5, Papa Kashai? Yeah, 10 and 5, we're going to go to 6. You there, priest? You can hear me? better now. Hold on. Let me see if it's not cutting out or whatnot. Well, before we get back, I'm gonna go ahead and get it. Probably have some technical difficulties right now. But this is the book of Daniel, chapter 10 and verse 5. No sweat, no sweat. All right, it's the book of Daniel, chapter 10, verse 5. Then I lifted up mine eyes and looked, and behold, a certain man clothed in linen, whose loins were girded with fine gold of Uphaz, right? Meaning what? That he had a war belt protecting his loins, right? It was fine gold, rock solid, real gold. You hit that with something, it's gonna break. You punch it, it's probably gonna break your knuckle. Actually, it will. You're gonna have some bloody knuckles that you've been asking for, right? Verse 6. His body also was like the beryl, and his face as the appearance of lightning, and his eyes as lamps of fire, and his arms and his feet like on the color to polished brass, right? His body also was like the beryl, and his face is the appearance of lightning. Now, when it's talking about his body, it's not talking about Christ's skin color. It's not what it's depicting. It's depicting the garment that he wore, right? I mean, the reason why they said body, because the garment consumed most of his body. So when you looked at him, you looked at his body, that's all you was mainly seeing was the garment. So that's why in description, that's why it says, and his body was like on the color of beryl. Beryl is like a greenish color. Now this is depicting the garment that Christ is wearing. This is not depicting his skin color. Christ was not green. That's another way that these Christians say, well, you know, Christ was a man of many colors. No, because you're taking the scriptures out of context. That's not simply what it means. It was talking about the color of his garment. That's what it was depicting, right? And his face is the appearance of lightning. Now, we're talking about his face being the appearance of lightning, right? That's a very scary sight. I know when you see thunderstorms, you see lightning and stuff out there. That's kind of, I mean, you know, probably the women that get scared, the kids that get scared, the dogs that get scared. Maybe sometimes you might be out there, you might get a little nervous. You're like, okay, I know we're about to go down. I don't know how much worse it can get. But you see lightning, and if you was to see a man's face look like that, you'd be kind of terrified, right? You go ahead and bring the brother up. Do you hear me, priest?
Sir.
Most High Christ. And his eyes as lamps of fire. Meaning what? At this point, we're talking about, you know, a man that drank a lot of wine. It was super red, right? Need I remind you, you know, Christ is going to come back with some anger. So, you know, his eyes being as lamps of fire, going to be pretty red. He's going to have a lot of anger in him, right? And his arms and his feet like in color to polished brass, right? So now this is getting into the depiction of Christ's skin color. You know, I remind you, I was just telling you that this Bible is only talking about black and brown people. It's about black and brown people, right? His arms and his feet like in color to polished brass. Now, you know, you ain't got to go to some Ivy League school. You ain't got to go to Yale or Harvard. You don't have to go to these top-notch schools to understand that in elementary or since pre-K, we know what the color brass is. And the color brass is a derivative of brown, meaning what? It's kind of like a cousin to it, or a sub to brown. You know, it's not really brown, but it is brown. You get what I'm saying? It's a polished brass. So a brown or brass color uses copper. You know what I'm saying? So it's saying that Christ's arms, and his feet were brown. So what is that saying? That's simply saying that Christ is black. If you look at my arms, and his arms and his feet like unto polished brass. If you look at the inside of my hand and the outside of my arm, it's a brownish color, polished brass type color, right? And the voice of his words like the voice of a multitude. You know, I remind you again, just like I said in the previous scriptures, in Revelations 1, that when Christ spoke, people heard Christ speak because his voice was very loud. See, you got to understand this. When black people have conversations, does not everybody hear our conversations? Everybody does. They hear Christ conversations. That's another way to check that list and say, hey, Christ is a black man. Like, we speak loud. Christ spoke loud because Christ was a Negro. It's in his spirit. It's him. It's nothing that you can take away from him. You can't take that away from him. Black people naturally speak loud. Hispanics naturally speak loud. Native Indians naturally speak loud. You know, probably Judah, the most known for it. But I say that to say this. That's another way that you can check off to say, hey, that Christ was a Negro. If you're not really getting it, that I'm describing it in color to you. To let you know that, hey, in today's world, Christ would be considered a black man, right? Or a brown man, African American, or a Negro. That would be the name that he would go by here in America if he was living today.
Like, if I may.
Go ahead. You go ahead, Priest.
Like, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
Bringing up heavy. Christ's voice moved many waters. And in this scripture, it's saying his voice was as if it was, right, with moving multitudes. Christ was an austere man.
That's
The
right.
picture that we see in the Christian church, that Christ voice doesn't move any waters, man. That Christ has everybody joining together, everybody loving each other. When Christ was an austere man, a man of authority, a man that followed the law, statutes, and commandments and did it perfect. And he showed us how to do it perfect. So what the priest is bringing out is heavy, showing you the true depiction of Christ. Slakia.
Nah, most high in Christ, Priest. The water for that. If I could add to that, what you were saying was heavy because the Christ that we know here in the ISUPK wasn't an austere man, just like the priest brought out. And just like he said that the Christ in Christian church is not. That Christ in the Christian church, I'll add to it. That Christ in the Christian church is how we make you feel. It make you feel good. It make you feel all sexual and weird and, out of body, all trippy. That's how that Christ make you feel. That's why every time you go into Christian church, you see all types of weird demonic stuff in there. Because that Christ in there has a spiritual chokehold over them. And he's not an austere man because in the religion of Christianity, it's so many demons flying around that one of them just attaches to you and allows you to act a certain way. Because those demons are attached with that false idol, Caesar Borgia, which makes him not an austere man, which makes him a false idol, which makes him not of the Lord. And every spirit that he has attached to him dwells in that Christian church, and it spreads throughout the Christian church. And that's why you feel like that you can just do and do and do, and then you keep repenting and repenting, you never change. That's why you go into church and you act the way you act. That's why you do the things you do, because you don't understand that this white man is your enemy. You don't understand that the Bible is talking about black and brown people and the Messiah being a black man from the tribe of Judah. Not Caesar Borgia, a white man from the days of Rome. You understand? Some leader that was just appointed by another white man. And that has a atrocious history. That is not an honorable man. That should not be put in the light as good. Because in the scriptures it says, woe to the ones that call evil good and good evil. That's what the scriptures say. So with that being said, you got to understand this. Christ is a black man from the tribe of Judah. Whether you want to like it or not. I didn't look, I'm not God. I didn't make the truth. I didn't come up with this. I didn't come up with that. The only thing that I was doing was I was born, I had parents, lived my life, later on came down, found the truth, found my home. This is what the Bible says in biblical times. Need I remind you, we still are in biblical times, but this is what was going on. By default, I am an Israelite. I'm from the tribe of Judah. With that being said, by default, they had Israelites in the Bible that followed the law, statutes, and commandments. So by default, I will follow the law, statutes, and commandments because the Lord chose us because we are his chosen people. And with that being said, I simply cannot fight against the Bible to say that the Bible was written by white men, that Christ is not black. I cannot fight against that because the Bible fights against me. And last time I checked, you cannot box with the Most High. It's nothing you can do. Boxing the Most High is like fighting Floyd Mayweather. You might think that you're going to win, but at the end of the day, you're not. And it's a reason why the Most High is 50-0. It's no plan you can do, no amount of training camps you can do, no amount of doctrines that you can do to fight with the Most High. You simply will lose every time. Just like every opponent that has came up against Tank Davis. You're going to get crushed. Sorry. Sorry, not sorry. If I could I get Ezekiel chapter 1 and verse 5?
Come on, sir.
Mm-hmm.
It's the book of Ezekiel, chapter 1, verse 5. Also, out of the midst thereof came the likeness of 4 living creatures.
Right.
And this, there was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man.
Right. You can stop right there. Now, in the book of Ezekiel, right? This is talking about the angels. Now, we're talking about the angels that dwell with Yahushua. The angels that's going to be coming back in these chariots, 200 million of them, to come wreak utter destruction to the world of America and actually the entire world, right? This is the depiction of the angels. And I remind you, see, you thinking that it's just Christ that's just black. Nope. We're going to get into the depiction of these angels to let you know that, hey, they black as well. They black and brown too, right? And the priest just read, also out of the midst thereof came the likeness of 4 living creatures, right? Living creatures. Meaning what? These are alive. These are breathing. This ain't like some ghost type stuff, some made up mythological stuff. No, this is real. This is real. They're living and breathing, right? And this was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man. So the Bible is telling you right now that the angels are men. Right? Give me verse 6 and verse 7.
Verse 6. And everyone had 4 faces, and everyone had 4 wings. Verse 7. And their feet were straight feet, and the soles of their feet was like the sole of a calf's foot, and they sparkled like the color of polished brass.
Right. Y'all hear that, man? I'm going to go back to verse 6. And everyone had 4 faces, and everyone had 4 wings. Now, in the verse above that, in verse 5, they had the likeness of a man. They had the likeness of a man. Yeah, they looked like a man, like a little bit, right? But it just said they had 4 faces, and everyone had 4 wings. Now, we're talking about the angels, right? You know, I remind you, if you're looking and hearing this description, you're like, what in the hell am I looking at? You gotta understand, these angels might have come in the likeness of man. They got 4 faces and 4 wings, right? They're supposed to be utterly terrifying. They're not the angels that you see in a Christian church. They're not the angels that you see with little babies with little diapers on that's half naked with a bow and arrow looking like Cupid. Those are not the angels depicted in the Bible. The angels that I was just reading about got 4 faces and 4 wings and come in the likeness of a man. I'm going to keep going. Verse 7. And their feet were straight feet, and the soles of their feet was like the sole of a calf's foot. Now, this is literally meaning a calf's foot. Like, you know, like the bottom of a cow's foot, right? And they sparkled like the color of burnished brass. That means that the bottom of his foot sparkled like burnished brass. Now, it could have been any color that the Most High chose, but he chose brass. It could have been in any nation that the Most High chose, but he chose the nation of Israel. It could have been anybody that he chose for the angel to wrestle with Jacob in the dream, but he chose Jacob. And after that, his name was no longer Jacob, but Israel. And Israel had 4 wives, and he had 12 sons, and they birthed the God's chosen people, the 12 tribes of Israel, the Israelites. God could have made any color, chose any nation, but he chose this. He chose this color. He chose this nation. He chose black and brown people to be a part of the greatest nation to ever walk the face of the earth. It's nothing you can do, man. The angels are black, and just like Christ was black. Give me Jeremiah 14:2. Now, we just broke down the color of the angels, man. And they got 4 faces and 4 wings. They utterly terrifying, and they come in the likeness of man, and they black. Good night. Imagine when in the day of the Lord, when they come back on 200 million goddamn on angels, and I'm chairs, Salaki, and there's angels there. And I just said they got 4 faces and 4 wings, and they look like a man, and he got a calf's foot and his polished brass. What in the hell you gonna think when he show up at your front door? You're gonna be like, man, I am terrified. In the Christian church, they've been telling us a lie. Nina reminds you, I'm even more terrified because this angel is black. He's not the white angel that has been depicted in the Christian church. You're going to be utterly terrified when you see a black man standing in front of you that you cannot even make out what it is. And he's going to destroy you. Can I get book of Jeremiah chapter 14:2, please?
Chapter 14, verse 23.
2, Salaki. Yeah, Jeremiah 14:2.
This is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 14, verse 2. Judah mourneth, and the gates thereof languish. They are black unto the ground, and cry of Jerusalem is gone up.
Right. Judah mourneth. Judah. Come on, Judah. Come on, Judah. The same tribe that Christ was from. And we mourning. Just like Christ was mourning when he was walking inside the hood he was living in the land of Nazareth. Nazareth, right? He was mourning as well. It was some things Christ experienced, he was mourning. Just like a modern day god doggone Negro today in the hood mourning. Or any place he might dwell. We're mourning. Because our people are the ones getting shot down. Our people are the ones on Section 8. Our people are the ones that get the short end of the stick. Our people are the ones that's always forgotten and left out. It's us. And the gates thereof languish. Meaning what? Languish meaning what? Suffer. Or to remain in an unpleasant situation. How do we remain in an unpleasant situation? How do we suffer? Because our gates are not up. How are our gates not up? Because the Christian pastors don't teach us anything good. They go along with that plan after they sign that 501c, and they say Christ is white. You can eat pork, shrimp, crab, and lobster. Hispanics are not your brothers. Native Indians are not your brothers. And that's what they do. And they go around and they say Christ is white. And they go around and say that the Bible was written by white men. And they go around and they vote. And they go around and follow every pagan holiday and pagan religion and plastered across the face of the earth in the church. And they touch on little boys. And they're perverts. And they're pedophiles. And they're child molesters. And they're rapists. And they're murderers. And they allow homosexuals in the church and lesbians. And they don't ever tell you to change. That's why our gates languish. Because they're not man enough to sit there and tell you that the life that you're living is definitely wrong. Because they like your checkbook. They like your pocketbook. And they like that money that's coming in. And will never will tell you to change because they love that money. Because they love the ways of America and they love America's culture because they are a good slave. That's why our gates languish. I'll continue. They are black unto the ground. Come on, man. The Bible just said that we are black unto the ground. Judah mourneth. What other nation is mourning? Only black and brown people. This ain't talking about no Jewish man. This ain't talking about no Ishmaelite. This ain't talking about no Arabs. This ain't talking about no Moabites, the Asians. This ain't talking about, the Grecians. This ain't talking about Greek and Rome and all that. This is talking about the nation of Israel, man. Black and brown people. What more do I have to explain for you to understand this in your simple mind that this Bible is depicting black and brown people? But yet you want to go around here and talk about your degrees, but you simply have no understanding and no simple reading comprehension skills. It's not adding up. No sweat, no sweat, no sweat. Right? Where we at? Okay. And the cry of Jerusalem is gone up. The cry of Jerusalem is us. It has gone up because, every year it gets worse for us. Every year we're sitting here begging for a new and better life, man. We're sitting here searching. We're searching for protection. But in all actuality, the protection is right here in the ISUPK, the Commanding General Yohana. That's what you got to understand, man. All right. Songs of Solomon 1 and 5. You still there, Priest?
Khan, sir. You said Songs of Solomon 1 and 5?
Khan.
Alright, let's get it. This is Songs of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 5. I am black, but comely, O ye daughters of Jerusalem, as the tents of Kedar, as the curtains of the solemn.
Right. I am black, but comely. This is Solomon telling his wives, I am black and beautiful. Why would Solomon say, I am black and beautiful? Why didn't he say, I am white? Why didn't he say, I am red? Why didn't he say, I am green? He said, I am black because Solomon was an Israelite indeed. That's what he was. We talking about Solomon, the man that had many wives, right? The man that was a well-renowned man. A man that had some authority, a very honorable man, right? He was a black man, which means what? Once again, it goes right back to the topic that this Bible is talking about black and brown people. I remind you, it ain't just about black people. I'm just using this just to play on words to let you know that the Bible does talk about color. The Bible is about black people. Black is just a term that we go by here in America. That's it. I'm not black. I'm not the color, of my pants or the midnight. It's not me. I'm brown. But we go by black or African American and Negro here in America. That's what the Bible they've given us to identify us. And that's what people still identify as today. So to further explain it so you can catch along and tag along with me and to make it tap into reality in your perspective, I'm using the word black. But in all actuality, you're an Israelite. And if you were a color that you would describe yourself, just like common sense, you would be brown. And then, of course, I say brown people as far as the Mexicans, their brownish color. We don't call them black. We call them like, if he's a Mexican, he's a Mexican, but he's really brown. But you wouldn't call him black. They would just say he's Mexican. They call us black. And then you got the Native Indians that are darker tone as well. You call it, they're brown as well. I'm brown as well. But the only reason why I'm saying that is black and brown is just as far as the name is that we identify as here in America. Right? Let me get Job 30 and 30.
All right. It's the book of Job, chapter 30, verse 30. My skin is black upon me, and my bones are burnt with heat.
Oh, good night. In the book of Job, chapter 30 and verse 30, my skin is black upon me. Once again, that word comes up again. I cannot make this up. Why is the Bible saying that my skin is black upon me? Black upon me. Black upon me. Meaning my skin is black upon me. This is a personal description. That's what it is. And my bones are burned with heat. Good night. It's a dark man, man. That's a dark man. If I could, let me see. My last scripture. Let me get Acts 13:1.
All right. It's the letter Acts, chapter 13, verse 1.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there were in the church that was at Antioch certain prophets and teachers, as Barnabas and Simeon, that was called Niger,
Mm-hmm.
and Lucius of Cyrene,
You can stop right there.
and
Salaki, you can
Madain.
stop right there. Right? And Simeon, that was called Niger. Niger. Okay. We're going to break this down. Niger in Latin or Spanish, because in the same languages, right? All come from the same language, right? Niger in Latin or Niger in Spanish means black, right? They were called black. They were called Niger. They were called black. They were called Niger. They were called black. Niger translate to black because Niger is Latin. Translated to English, it is black. Why, once again, they said that they were called black? Can somebody tell me why? I done found more than 5 scriptures that's telling me that the Bible is about black and brown people. But once again, you go to this church and you say, well, the Bible is about white people. The white man wrote it. The Bible's been tampered with. It's not a story that I can really count on. Come on, man. I'm reading the Bible right here to you. And guess what? We're not in no church house. Guess what? I'm not here to take your money. I'm not here to touch on your son. I'm not here to touch on your daughter, mess with your wife. I'm here to simply give you the god doggone truth. And the truth is, the Bible is about you. But yet you steady want to run away from it. How about this, black man, Hispanic and Native Indian man? Stop running away from it, man. Take it and own up to it. Understanding this Bible is talking about you. And that was going to be my last scripture. You got the security announcements. If not, I can give them.
I got you, sir.
All right, Most High Christ, and then I'm gonna get the feast, and then we gonna salute.
All right. This is ISUPK security announcements. We're the ISUPK. Start out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York. Rule for new brother and sister. When a new brother or sister comes into the school, they are off limits for 6 months. They're to be saluted only. They are here to shed themselves of the world. If they need transportation, the teacher will arrange it. After 6 months, if a brother or sister has an interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to speak to a brother or sister. There's another 6 months in which the brother or sister will court each other. After this 6-month period, the brother or sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithes, which is a commandment. You can find this in the book of Numbers, chapter 18, verse 21. The book of Malachi, chapter 3, verses 8 through 10, means 10th in the Hebrew, my Ishura. 10% of every, so like 10% of every penny of any increase the Lord gives you, give to the treasury department or teacher. Priest fund, free will offer for priests, not mandatory, whatsoever amount you would like. Upcoming holy convocations.
All right,
I got.
I got it. I got it. I can read it for you. Upcoming holy convocation. The Feast of Purim. Wait, Salaki. It is 2023, ain't it?
I got you, sir. No
Go
sweat.
ahead.
Upcoming holy convocation. This will be the Feast of Purim, the 14th day and the 15th day of the 12th month. This falls on a Sunday, the 5th of March, and Monday, the 6th of March, 2023. You can find this in the book of Esther, chapter 9, verse 20 through 31. If anyone wants to become a trooper in the school, start wearing all black, boots, shirt, pants, headband, and scarf. This includes the ISUPK security announcements. I'm Officer Kamaki, passing the class back to Officer Yahaji.
All right, with that, we're going to give a courtesy salute to the brothers and the sisters. All right. In Israel, Amaju needs to stand. In Israel, Amaju Shabbat. Amaju, Barak, Yahweh Hashem
Yahweh
Yahweh Top. We're going to turn and give a courtesy salute to the sisters. In Israel, Amaju, Amaju Shabbat. Amaju, Barak, Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Top. All right, with that, dismiss. Most High Christ.